Welcome to Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. This podcast is about the journey to a more sustainable future in order for us to be able to do our bit to achieve net zero. I'll be discussing a variety of topics with experts in their field in order to educate and increase our knowledge of clean energy, electric vehicles and the electric vehicle infrastructure. So whether you're an individual wanting to make a difference at home, a small business or a corporate, this podcast is just for you. Okay, so today on the podcast, I have got Mark Winn from SMS Plc, and we met, is it about 3 weeks ago now-ish, at the EV show? If people are watching this, they'll know when this was recorded, but it was about 3 weeks ago, wasn't it?
It felt like last week, but it also felt like 3 months ago. But yes, it was at the EV show. Loved the EV show. Yes.
And Mark is the first fellow Yorkie that I'm speaking to. There we go. I'm bowing to you now. I'm another Yorkshire person.
Two born and bred West Yorkshire people on a podcast.
Oh, absolutely.
What could go wrong?
Jackson Wakefield. There we go, love.
There we are.
I am going to revert to my accent now, and everybody will be going, "Oh my God, there she goes." This is what happens. Fine. This is what happens when I go and see my family up north as well. So I totally revert. Anyway, so Mark is the head of sales EMobility at SMS, and you've been there for a couple of years, haven't you? So SMS provide energy solutions and technologies to create sustainable homes and businesses. So you're kind of working in SMS at, I mean, yours is specifically EMobility, isn't it? But you've got infrastructure services, metering, energy data, energy services, residential. That's a lot, isn't it? It's a lot that you're looking at, but you're specifically EMobility, aren't you?
Yes, so my world is in the EV charging world, the EMobility world, and SMS is a multidisciplinary business. So like you say, it's domestic, residential, it's commercial. Our kind of 5 pillars of energy revolution as we see it is generate, heat, store, charge and efficiency. So generate being PV or wind.
Yes.
Storage is battery storage, and we've got some really innovative solutions in the battery storage space.
Yeah.
Heating, the electrification and decarbonisation of heat, and then charging being electric vehicle charging points. And efficiency is all about just using less, and whatever we do use, just using it better, which could be a combination of all those technologies. But SMS's heritage that's brought us to where we are over the last 30 years has been all around sort of the domestic smart energy revolution, and we're involved in the rollout of domestic smart meters, and that's all born around by understanding that data is key to what we do. If we've got good data, we can then work out the solutions, the problems and the benefits to those problems, and identify the right sort of movement forward. So we are we're involved in the smart metering world and domestic smart meters. We've got about 4 million energy assets that we own and operate, and all
4 million.
Yeah, wow. So they're all underpinned through a platform called Metis that SMS. It's key to SMS's business to understand all that data and pull it in from commercial and residential settings. So we're unique in the utilities space, because you tend to find people that really specialise in the commercial world, and then you tend to find people that specialise in the residential world. Apart from energy suppliers, there are very few people that touch both sides of the coin, if you like, that work in domestic settings but also work in the commercial space. And I think that's just a real opportunity here. Yeah, and ultimately, 20 odd years of experience, so it puts us in a really strong position to be part of that. We call that smart energy revolution. What's the next 5 to 10 years look like, and how do we use all our skills to maximum effect?
And you said before we started recording this, you were talking about the office that you work out of in Cardiff has just gone through a whole overhaul. Do you want to just explain? Because I thought that was brilliant, what you've been telling me.
Yeah, so anyone that's seen my LinkedIn post today, hopefully everyone on this podcast has, and if they haven't, get on it. But yeah, so over the last couple of months, we believe in doing what we do as well as doing what we say. So we've just turned one of our offices in Cardiff, just off the M4, into a green building. So that includes putting PV on the roof, some battery storage at the side of the property, and also putting some electric vehicle charge points in, so we can help enable more people to adopt electric vehicles. So we have a salary sacrifice scheme, so if we can give more charging at work, that allows people to drive into work and charge, because not everybody's got the ability to charge at home. But ultimately that's also about us being able to look at that whole connected building through generating electricity PV, so we can generate electricity and provide it to the grid. We can store it in the battery, we can use the battery to support national grid and deliver electricity back, but also be a self-contained building that powers its own and uses its own electricity, but also uses it to power vehicles as well. So it's really exciting times. That's just one building so far. There are more buildings within the portfolio. You know, we've made a commitment as a PLC to be net zero by 2030. So all our vehicles will be zero emission at the tailpipe by 2030. And that's just one example. So you have doing the building first and then everything else, and, you know, leading by example, not just saying we do something, but actually doing it, just getting on and doing it, doing stuff, as someone said earlier on today to me. You know, we just need to...
we were talking about that, weren't we? Yeah. You're doing it, which is great. And actually,
just get on and do stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe that person might end up listening to this podcast and he'll know what we're talking about.
Hopefully he will.
But you were also talking, hopefully. But you're also talking about the infrastructure, how you specifically look at kind of like the links between power station to socket and the added value that you're kind of providing that way. Do you want to just explain that?
Yeah, absolutely. So SMS's heritage is in power infrastructure. So I just give you some numbers. Firstly, we're installing 45,000 smart meters each and every month, so that's the core to SMS's business. But in the power infrastructure world, the commercial, we've done 60,000 power infrastructure connections over our heritage, which is a huge amount. It's a significant amount of major power connections, and that is, you know, your power station where you're generating the sort of national grids world, and how do you get it to the plug socket in the building? How do you connect electricity? And that's the real challenge in the EV space. Is, you know, we need to get more charging out there, because that will help us get more vehicles, and the more vehicles, the more chargers. It's the chicken and egg scenario that everyone talks about, and in order to do that, you know, we need to put charging in the right place, and it's a challenge that we've faced over the last sort of 5, 10, 15 years of working under previous national infrastructure projects. So I'll give you a couple of examples of that. So one of those projects was Olympic Park in London. We were involved in the infrastructure, power infrastructure of the Olympic Park, you know, so powering that stadium and all the associated stadiums, you know, so there was a number of partners involved in that. So that's kind of an example of large scale capabilities that we've got and have done in the past. And then the second area is all about national infrastructure, which I think is far more relevant to electric vehicle charging, and that's mobile telecoms. And the thing with the mobile telecom sector that aligns itself to electric vehicle is that in order to put a mast up, and so we've gone through 2G, 3G, 4G, and now we're into 5G mobile telecoms. In order to put a mast up, you need to know where you're going to put the mast. Where's the signal needed? Where's the demand for the signal? And once you've identified that bit, then there's a nuance of how do you get power to that mast, because it does need to be powered, and there's a resilience needed there. And so when you start to see 4G masts around, or you now start to see the 5G being built, the big, really big masts that have got 4 or 5 boxes, feeder pillars that surround those masts. It's where do you put that? How do you get your power there? That's the big challenge, because at the end of the cable there is a meter, and that's SMS's expertise in metering, and then there's a mast, you know, that distributes the signals to get your mobile phones to work and all your telecoms to work. That's the, to a certain extent, that's the easy bit at the end of the cable. It's how we get there and how do we power it up and then measure the energy. And EVs is exactly the same. Where do we need to put charging infrastructure, and how do we get the right power to that charging infrastructure? And at the end of the cable is a meter, and then there's this nice box with some sockets on it to plug our cars in. And the hard bit is everything that we see below ground. So the nice shiny bits that are above ground, you know, whoever it is, whether it's InstaVolt, whether it's GridServe, whether it's Iontier, whoever this has, whether it's SMS, Whoever's above ground, they're the ones that look nice. The hard bit, and also the most costly bit, is everything underground that's about getting power there and enough power. And that's SMS's sort of heritage in the commercial space. It's having done a number of those projects, both large scale, but also worked heavily within the telecom sector to deliver national infrastructure rollout, to really understand where existing power is, how do we connect to the different high voltage and low voltage networks, how we take it from a substation to a street where you need to put the mast or where you need to put the chargers. That's the complex stuff in EV, and it's something that we're really proud of doing those types of projects, but I've got the experience and the knowledge to keep doing more of it.
So talking about experience, how did you get into this industry then? What was it that kind of attracted you to it, or was it just one of those things where you went, oh, that looks all right?
I think like a lot of things in many people's careers, we tend to find we've got here by accident. For me though, it does feel a little bit like a full circle. So, way back when I were 19 whatevers, when I first started working, my first job was selling used cars. So I am a used car salesperson. But we've moved on a lot from then. We talked about sales, but we've moved on from the 1980s used car sales. But I spent 5 or 10 years within the vehicle industry, so that was used car sales. It was dealer forecourt, and then I moved into the fleet sector, and I worked within the fleet sector, selling to fleets and selling vehicles and leasing and accident management, maintenance, and all those types of things. And then, having done that for a decade, I moved out of that sector and ended up into the utilities sector. That wasn't by choice. That was just something where something came along, the opportunity was right for me. But spent another decade in the utilities sector, and then a few years ago joining SMS was about doing a lot more than what I was doing in the utility space, which was helping people reduce and buy energy better and so on and so forth. But the appeal for me about SMS was being able to put money where its mouth was, to do what we've done at our offices, to actually deliver technology, to deliver things like EV charging, to deliver battery storage. And that's really important to us because we are an asset owning business, so we own those assets as well as delivering. That's unique for us as well. So to come to SMS and see that opportunity was almost bringing the two separate decades of my working career almost combined together in a fusion type way of go. Vehicles and cars and everything have always been a real passion of mine. Seeing that all the new vehicles come out in different vehicles and driving and everything else that came along with working in the fleet sector, to then the utility sector being sat here now, bringing that together and actually combining two different sides of my career into one, and away we go, and just take that passion I've had in those two roles and knit it into one. So by accident, but sometimes with hindsight you look at the past and think maybe it wasn't quite by accident, maybe it's almost a fate that brought me here. Bringing the passions together, and that's why I'm here where I am. And 12 months into less than 12 months into the EV space, the EMobility space, with SMS is kind of giving me the hunger, the desire, the thrill of just being really involved in an exciting time at SMS, but also an exciting time, across the nation for us to deliver.
It is a really, really exciting time. So what would you say that you mainly concentrate on in your role kind of as head of sales?
So EMobility,
I know that.
we have to sell something. Yeah, I mean it's a short career.
I get that.
Yeah. It's a short career if you don't sell something in sales. But yes, and in EMobility, so we're focused on a number of key sectors. We've got 4 key sectors that we focus on within SMS that we think we've got some really interesting propositions, bringing all our background together to deliver that. And that first one is the fleet sector. So these are people that run large car and van fleets. So it is mainly light commercials and cars, not necessarily the HGVs. And some of that is because we need to learn more before we enter into a marketplace. We understand the utility space, we understand the operation of cars and vans, because we're a large fleet operator ourselves. We've got 650 vehicles with our domestic engineers driving up and down the country at all times of day and night. So we are there in emergency situations to make sure people are on power, make sure people have got heating in their homes and everything else. And quite sensitive time to talk about that, but there's a lot of that that we're working on in our world. So the fleet sector is one of our core strengths, and then we're looking at the hospitality retail sector, and again some really innovative solutions, and for us it is about the solution. And then obviously
talked about this, didn't you, when we met?
Yeah, and I think that's where we come at this differently. Is that what we're trying to do is to bring something that puts driver convenience at the front of the decision making and at the front of the proposition. And so if you take the hotel sector, for example, it's something that you and I were talking about at the London EV show. And if we just think about hotels for a second, the core function of a hotel is to provide accommodation overnight for travellers, for business and personal use and holidays. So for me as a business person, if I'm using a hotel, it's because I've driven a distance and I'm not driving the distance back home the same day. Or I've got an early start the following month. Whatever the reasons, I'm there to stay overnight, and that's why I'm there. But if I look at a lot of hotels at the moment, their charging infrastructure isn't necessarily suited to the core use of what that function, of what that facility is, because it's lots of rapid charging. And there's some really good reasons why rapid charging are there. That's not to say that a hotel doesn't need rapid charging, but there are certain circumstances where it does, and there are certain circumstances where it doesn't. So our role is to put the right charger in the right location for the right use. So if I'm going to a hotel and it's got some day facilities, conference and exhibitions, those types of things, then absolutely I want to turn up in my car, plug an EV in, charge for a couple of hours, do what I'm going to do in the hotel, in the conference or the exhibition, get back to my car and move on. That's perfect. That matches. If I'm going there to stay overnight, what I don't want to do is get a text message at 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock to tell me I need to move my vehicle so somebody else can have access to that charger because I've taken my charge. And I think the reality is what you tend to see if you stay in hotels is that the car that was parked there at 8 o'clock that night is also parked there at 8 o'clock the following morning. Because there's a point as a human being where we go, especially in the winter where it is now and it's really cold, if you're staying in a hotel this week, you don't want to be getting up at 10 o'clock at night to go downstairs and unplug your car because it's freezing.
No, exactly.
You're like, no, I'm staying where I am, thank you very much. So there's a different type of charger that needs to be installed there, and that's the charging, the fast charging 722 kilowatts as we all know them as AC charging that you need to plug in, leave it and forget. And so our proposition to the hotel sector, and where we're already delivering this to one of the national chains and a couple of other hotel sectors, is to say, look, what you need to do is provide a charging function that works for your drivers. So if you've got some day facilities and some conferencing, great, you want some rapid charging. But if your hotel is only there to serve the purpose of what a hotel predominantly has been, which is overnight accommodation, and you very rarely get people turning up for a couple of hours during the day, then it's more cost effective and it's much better to provide more charging for overnight charging on a fast charger than it is for rapids. Because that rapid charge, if you put 4 rapids in, great, fantastic. But if you don't need rapid charging because people are staying overnight, you could probably put 10, 15 or more fast chargers. And you imagine the experience of an EV driver turning up to a hotel and seeing a plethora of chargers rather than 4 that are already taken up. And then if we unwind it one step back, and this is where we've been successful, is actually to say to the hotel, look, we can use our platform, our solution to link with your booking system. So when I'm going online to book my hotel room, what my biggest problem is as an EV driver, it isn't the range anxiety, because vehicles now can do the range, it's charging anxiety. That's the problem I've got, is when I get there, where do I charge? So as a hotelier, what you want to be able to tell your drivers is quite simple. Look, when you get here, there is charging. And the experience we're going to give you right now is when you book your room, we're going to let you book a charging space as well. So when I arrive at 6 o'clock tonight and park in the hotel, I go to reception, I say, hi, it's Mr. Winn, I've come to check in. they give me my keys, and then they also give me another piece of paper, whatever it might be, or just a simple notification and text message that logs me in that says, you're in room 151 and your parking bay is number 8. So I can go park my car in bay 8, I can go plug it in, I can go back to my room, I can get something to eat, I can do some work, I can go to sleep, and I wake up the following morning safe in the knowledge that my vehicle's fully charged. And that's the experience that
10 o'clock, like you said.
No, and that's the experience that we need to give people in the hotel space, is to give more fast charging, not to only offer rapid charging. And as I say, stand by the point that rapid charging is a useful solution where people are only staying for 2 to 3 to 4 hours. We need to handle that use case. But in the majority of cases for hoteliers, it's about providing a solution that's for overnight. Because I'm driving an electric vehicle, I'm at home, I plug in at home, I let it charge, I wake up the following morning, it's fully charged. Why can't that very same solution happen in more and more hotels? And so it's that for us is like, is we've built that proposition, we've built that solution, we're delivering that solution to say, book your charging bay at the point of booking your room. Give the experience when a driver turns up of, you allocate the room on arrival, well, you can allocate the bay on arrival. And then the experience for me as using a hotel isn't significantly different just because I'm driving an electric vehicle. And that's what the experience should be. And that's what we're starting to see in some of our hotel customers. So, and I'll come back to it, but then we've got public, then we've got the public sector that we work with. So that's just public charging out there in car parks, inside of charging hubs, etc., etc. We work with workplaces, so exactly like we've done in our offices. That's about providing charging infrastructure to workplaces to encourage the adoption of EV within the working environment and depot charging. And as I say, the fleet solution, which is really exciting for us at this moment in time, is again using all our heritage as a utilities metering expert and actually providing a whole ecosystem for a fleet operator and fleet drivers that take away all the pain that they're going through right now. And if you think again, so I'll give you the example. If you take a van driver who has got off-street parking, and this is where we solve one of those problems. At the moment, if the fleet operator, is kind enough, and many of them are at the moment, they provide the charger and they install the charger at the driver's home. That's fantastic. So as a driver, I come home at night, I plug my van in, so the following morning it's going to be fully charged, ready for me to do my next job. Great, fantastic. The challenge and the experience that we now starting to see is that the cost of that charging has obviously gone up significantly because of the crisis that we're involved in. And the way to reimburse drivers is where the pain lies, because drivers are either paid in one of two ways. HMRC have got the annual electricity rate, which is 8 pence per mile. Many occasions that doesn't cover the cost of charging at home. It certainly doesn't cover the cost of charging if you're charging in the public as well as charging at home. And so that leaves drivers out of pocket. And what we have to bear in mind is that these van drivers specifically are ones that have been driving a van with a fuel card, that have only ever transacted the fuel but never paid for it. So they've never had to put in an expenses claim to be paid back for fuel. And we're asking these guys and girls to go move into an electric van, to be more conscientious, more sustainable, and a lot of them are the ones that are doing it voluntarily at this process, in this stage of adoption. And yet they're the ones getting the friction, they're the ones that are potentially out of pocket. The alternative reimbursement mechanism is that fleets reimburse drivers at cost, so whatever the energy tariff is at home. And the challenge there for fleet operators is that just becomes a real massive administrative problem, because if you've got 100 vans, that means potentially you've got 100 different prices of electricity in drivers' homes. It means you've got 100 expenses claims to process, and you've got to validate somebody's electricity bill. So you've got to ask them to provide their electricity bill to validate the cost. So there's a massive problem for fleets to deal with, and there are some providers out there who are doing some really good work around helping reduce that administration. and then the second bit that's linked to the driver is that if that's done, a driver gets reimbursed today for the charge that they've taken out the house charger, the domestic charger. They've been reimbursed their mileage, and that's great. That's fantastic, and it's done at cost. So job done, tick in a box, fantastic. But there is another problem that's starting to come down the road, because most of us, when we look at our electricity costs at home or our gas costs at home, the only recognition that we have of what our homes cost to run is based on our direct debit. Now, over the last couple of years, we've probably become more in tune with what the cost per kilowatt hour is. But domestically, most people see my energy bill's £100 a month because that's what my direct debit is.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how much I use, and I don't know what the cost of that is that I use, but I get charged £100 a month. So what we then start to see is that even though there are different ways of reimbursing, whether that's reimbursing the driver direct, whether that's reimbursing the supplier direct through the different platforms and solutions that exist, what's happening is electricity suppliers are saying to homeowners who've got electric vehicles and these fleet drivers, your direct debit's now going up from £100 to £200 a month, because what our systems tell us is that your consumption has gone up significantly. In which case, we need to change our direct debit to make sure we recover the total cost of that. In some cases, ignoring the work that providers are doing out there. The likes of MENA are doing some really good stuff in reimbursement. But even though MENA are providing that reimbursement mechanism from fleet operator direct to energy supplier, the direct debits are still going up for drivers. And now that's a pain at any time. But in the current cost of living crisis, that's even more of a pain. And you just have to think about these drivers' experiences previously in their ICE vehicles, in their petrol and diesel, was that I just went to Tesco's, I handed over my fuel card, and that paid for it, and then I got on with my job. I never had to put a claim in, I never had to pay for it myself, I've never had to claim it back. Car drivers is a different experience, but for vans, that's the pain that we're seeing people go through. So yeah, within the fleet solution that we're bringing, what that does is create a whole ecosystem to take all that pain away and allow fleets to pay for the charge in the same way that it would have paid for fuel separately. So it's a charging system that's separate from the house supply on an overnight off-peak tariff, but building a whole ecosystem. So that ecosystem means that charging at home, charging at work and charging at the public domain can all be built into one ecosystem, one payment platform. So the fleet pays a set monthly fee for all its charging without the need to reimburse drivers, just get rid of all that pain. So drivers don't need to worry about being reimbursed, fleets aren't overpaying, fleets are paying one rate for all their vehicles nationwide, and it's one fixed cost into this whole ecosystem, and it's all brought together through a single payment platform, a single platform that can link in with telematics, and it can give all that data. It can protect against misuse, so it can recognise which vehicle's been plugged in, so you can't be charging somebody else's vehicle, you're only charging the fleet vehicle. It can give all that comfort to fleets, but take away all the pain that's happening at this moment in time, and just take us back to that bit that says, let's put the drivers at the front of the solution and their convenience first and foremost, and design something that works. And that's for us is the unique bit about SMS's heritage within the sort of utilities and metering world. Have been able to go, there's a way we can do this at home that's much better than it currently is if we just put a charge on a domestic supply. And as I say, no civils, no additional work, no disruption, charger installed, if the driver leaves, charger's taken away. It's a really seamless solution and a much cheaper solution. So you're talking sort of hundreds of pounds cheaper to charge using this type of solution, and the benefit of all the hassle taken away, and the benefit of including charging out in the public under one ecosystem. So you're not having to worry about an RFID card for somebody else's platform. It's one solution. Drivers get one app to access all the charge points if they do need to charge publicly, as well as charging at home. So we're really excited about this, and everyone we've spoken to, he's like, this is exactly what we need. This is the solution to help fleets get through this pain that we're going at. It's just a point of time. there's only so many hours in the day. We only live for 24 hours a day, and it's like there isn't enough hours for us to be able to deal with the amount of positive response inquiries and almost demand for the solution that we're currently experiencing. But we'll get there. We'll find enough hours in the day to be able to help fleets out. That's important to us.
And you said before about keeping it simple, and this sounds like it is definitely keeping it simple, isn't it?
I mean, I hope so. I hope people have listened to this and gone, I get what you're saying, Mark. I really do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. We do need to stop overcomplicating things. We just need to say, look, here's a solution. It's simple. Drivers don't need to worry about it. Fleets don't need to worry about it. It's all in one ecosystem, and it's a single monthly payment, and all your charging's included. And here's one way to transact everything. That's the solution.
Yeah. No, it does sound like a really good idea. So I'm going to finish up with asking you if people are interested in what they're listening to, how do they find you? So obviously we met face to face. You're on LinkedIn. We've spoken on LinkedIn, haven't we? So they can find you on LinkedIn. What's the website for SMS for them to look at?
Yeah, so SMS's website is www.sms-plc.com, and then if you put / EV charging in your preferred interweb platform, that'll take you to our EV charging website. You'll see lots of SMS if you just go to sms-plc.com. So that's the way to find SMS. In terms of me personally, so yes, I'm on LinkedIn. Just put Mark Winn in. Hopefully you'll find me. Nice smiling, happy face. It's a few years old, so I look a little bit younger on LinkedIn than I do today on the podcast. I'm not on all the other socials. You won't find me on TikTok and all the cool for kids platforms. It's a LinkedIn solution.
Neither am I, don't worry.
Absolutely. And if people want to contact me direct, then you can just go to email me at mark.winner@sms-plc.com. If it's easier, we have a central inbox, so my team and myself can get back to people probably much quicker and deal with enquiries, and that's evcharging@sms-plc.com. So I think those are probably the easiest ways to get in touch. I'll avoid the phone number, although I do have a mobile phone. I'll avoid the phone number because...
Don't worry. I don't want you being spammed.
Absolutely, yeah. I don't want spam phone calls at 1 o'clock in the morning for somebody who's got, what, does it do this?
No, none of that. Yeah, exactly. Oh well, listen, it's been really interesting. I think you're kind of like you're saying about the ecosystem is going to be really, really beneficial for different, fleet solutions. Or you are the fleet solution to fleets, aren't you? So yeah, I really appreciate your time. So thank you, and it's been, like I say, it's been great to talk to you.
No, Liz, I really appreciate you inviting me along. For my debut in the podcast world, that's another first for me. So I really appreciate it, and I'm really happy to talk about this. I hope that's come across. I'm really passionate about what we're doing, and definitely. I guess my final point is probably what someone might say in a few days' time when you talk to them. We just need to get stuff done. We really do. But it's a really exciting time, and thanks for having me and listening to me waffle on.
Oh no, you've not waffled. It's been really interesting. Like I say, it's great to get people who are passionate on here. I'm passionate about pushing this podcast forwards, and it's nice to speak to people who are... More people from Yorkshire, Liz. More people from Yorkshire. We need. Of course. We need to spread the Yorkshire word. Yorkies on here. Hey up, love. That's it. Now then, I'll sit it. I'll see you later. All right, my love. Well, listen, thank you ever so much for your time, and pleasure. I'm going to say goodbye to everyone else. So thank you, and see you later. See you next time, everyone. See you later. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye. Bye. You've been watching Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. Don't forget to subscribe and click on the bell icon, and you'll receive all of our weekly videos. Thanks for watching. See you soon. Bye.